Hello and welcome to South of Left Field. My name's Jimmy, and since this is the first video, I just want to touch on a couple of things. First is the title, South of Left Field. I began my life in a very rural setting in the deep South, and probably unsurprisingly, started my life with a very conservative mindset. Very much influenced by my two uncles that served in the Second World War. Very much influenced by what I was taught is the history of the family in the area I grew up. As I began to experience life, though, in a broader aspect, I began to become disenfranchised somewhat with a lot of the conservative beliefs, and some of the history that I thought I knew turned out to be much more complex. Over time, I began to look around the political scene, the political game, if you will, and I began to migrate from right field to center field to left field. Now, there's people that move around the political spectrum all the time. And of course, the political spectrum moves all the time. People today that put themselves forward as, I guess, liberal is what you would call most of the Democrats today, would have made pretty radical conservative Republicans from my youth. In trying to figure out, though, what I believed, in trying to figure out where I wanted to base my understanding, I kind of began to take a look across the philosophies behind what we call conservative, what we call liberal, and of course now it's gotten amazingly complicated, neoliberal, neo-Nazi, Nazi, I mean, take your pick, socialist, communist. Looking over the fences to the far right and to the far left, I've always had a big interest in history. So some of the things that I had learned in history I began to apply to the politics of the world at large, and the United States in particular. And of course, over the right field fence was fascism, and that's got a pretty sordid history behind it. I didn't find any of its philosophy really consistent or attractive at all. Over the left field fence, things got a little more interesting, trying to understand, well, hey, there's communists and there's socialists, and they sure sound a lot alike, and what's the difference between them? Somewhere in there, I discovered that there was a separation. When you say communist, it's sort of a question, because a lot of people, when they say communist, they're thinking about a governmental system. And when I think of communist now, I think about an economic system. You can have a communist economy under a representative government. As a matter of fact, the writings suggest representative structures to government overseeing a communist economy. And I don't think that's a distinction, certainly wasn't a distinction that I was ever aware of, at least for the first 5 decades of my life. But to go back to the title, South of Left Field, so here I am over in left field, and I find that my views don't fit any part of the playing field in its entirety, and really doesn't seem to fit what's over the fence in the right and over the fence in the left. So I kind of dropped out, and if you will, I went south of left field. And it's from that perspective that I wanted to start this little vlog, so I've been told it's called. And so we will begin from south of left field. One of the big things that seemed to crop up under the current administration was this short little term, MAGA. Make America Great Again. Now, if you are a supporter of the United States, if you're a citizen of the United States, a believer of the United States, it's kind of a good thought. Just let's lift it out of the politics, make America great again. So that's something that I began to kind of turn over in my head. Now, let me make it clear, I'm not a supporter of this current administration, despite my beginnings on the very conservative end of the scale. But that doesn't mean that you don't want to, well, I don't want to listen to some of the things that are being thrown around. And I began to wonder, okay, well, let's see. Now, you want to make America great again. Right now, seems to me making America great is really heavily focused on our military, Army, Navy, Air Force, and well, this new Space Force. I'm chuckling at that one. I'm not sure where that's going to go, but we certainly put phenomenal amounts of the revenue, the government's revenue, into the military. And we've got them scattered like a string of pearls all over the world, killing people with drones and involved in fights and arguments and deployments. It's like we're emptying out the wealth of America supporting this huge military. And MAGA, a lot of it seems to revolve around that. So that was something that I wanted to take a look at. I wanted to ask some questions of myself on that. Making America, making a country great. And I realized that when I thought of America, I really didn't have a well-defined sense of what was the foundation of the country. A lot of people might jump to things like the Declaration of Independence and documents and, the form of our government and everything else. But since I've read so much in history, the more I thought about it, the more dissatisfied I became. It isn't necessarily government that makes a country great. As a matter of fact, if you ask yourself a question, would America still exist if someone went through and killed off all of our governmental politicians? The entire House of Representatives, the Senate, the administration, the judiciary, if they were all just snap fingers gone, they didn't exist anymore, would we still have an America? My answer is yes. If something happened and you eliminated a vast amount of our military, would we still have an America? And the answer is yes. And so I gradually began to realize that what makes a country is its general population. You can have a country as long as you have a people. So it isn't the leadership that makes America great. And truth be told, it's not really our military that makes America great. Our military was really quite small leading up to the First World War and following the First World War. Before we got in the Second World War, we had a tiny military. The only thing we came out of the First World War with that was fairly strong was our Navy. So if making America great is something that's a person is really serious about, then I would suggest that we look to the question of how do we improve our citizenry? How do we improve our society? Because if we don't have a strong population, if we don't have a well-educated population, if we don't have a population that is at least somewhat secure in its life and existence so that they have time to pay attention to the actions of our government, then how can we have a great country? So from south of left field, I want to leave that thought behind. Just kind of put a pin in it and hang it out there. America is its citizens. It's not the presidents, it's not the senators, it's not the generals. I'm sorry. America is its citizens. America is only as strong as we are. And we are only as strong as we support one another. And that's something that I think in all of ballyhoo today has been lost. So from south of left field, thank you for your time. And hopefully there will be some more, and I would be delighted if you listen and just form your own opinions, because you are one of the citizens of America just like I am. Thank you.